Hey guys, what's happening? So for this one, we're getting into part 1 of Venom War. And through the course of this, I want to break down the reason why Eddie Brock is going to war with his son, Dylan, because there's a lot of things in this first issue that are referencing things from the current Carnage series and the Venom series. So to get the most out of it, I have links in the description for anyone who needs to get caught up. But if you're just jumping in now with no idea about anything that's going on, I'll do my best to make it make sense. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so heading into Venom War, this starts out in a really crazy way, but it comes together rather quickly to make it simple as far as who's on what side and what all of this is about. But starting out, we find ourselves at Grand Garden Arena for an open challenge that's being held by the Unlimited Class Wrestling Federation, so that whoever it may be, man or alien, if they have what it takes, then they've got a chance at walking away with the unlimited golden belt. But rather quickly we find out that this whole thing is about as real as wrestling can be, because as these two guys get ready to fight, they're literally talking to each other about the fight choreography. So that right there just lets us know that this is all a show. But just before all this gets started, time displaced Eddie Brock alongside of Tiro, Wild, and Bedlam drop out of the time stream, making their way to this garden not long after the destruction of Meridius's garden. And as soon as they get here, they just wreck these guys and take over the whole arena. So now, because actual bones are crunching, the evacuation siren goes off, and that's the cue for the live audience to leave. But Eddie ends up picking up the microphone and telling them to keep the drone cameras rolling, because he has a message he wants to deliver and he wants it to be televised. So he looks in the camera and he tells New York that this ring is theirs now. It belongs to the Kings in Black. They're not giving it up until they get what they want, which are two things: his son, Dylan Brock, and the Venom Symbiot. As he goes on to say, welcome to the Venom War. And I gotta say, for anyone who hasn't read Venom in a while, or you just don't know what's going on here, for now, just know that there are two sides, with it being Eddie Brock versus Dylan Brock. And each of them have symbiotes and or other people on either side, but the bottom line is Eddie doesn't want Dylan to bond with the Venom Symbiot again, and Dylan doesn't want Eddie to bond with the Venom Symbiot either. And we'll talk about the reasons why in a little bit, because for a moment we visit each side, as well as the symbiote who's in the middle, and Peter Parker, who just got dragged into all of this. But first, starting out with the Venom Symbiot, who for a moment here is going through its oldest memory, all the way up till now, starting from back when it was first discovered and bonded to the Kree soldier Tel-Kar, which is something we covered a while back in Venom First Host. And I got that link in the description in case anyone needs to go back and check it out. But for the symbiote, with its first host being a Kree soldier, this leans into the idea of the Venom Symbiot only knowing war its entire life, because after Tel-Kar, the symbiote met Peter in another war, where at the time during Secret Wars, the symbiote was in a very dark place, because its previous host Tel-Kar forced it to do bad things. He controlled the symbiote, damaged it, but when it met Peter, who at first just thought it was a high-tech alien suit, Peter was like, oh, this is not bad. So the symbiote interpreted that as if it were Peter saying that it wasn't malicious or evil. So going forward, the symbiote took on Peter's war. And because he was a much better host than the previous one, the symbiote would have done anything for him. Which is why at times when Peter was asleep, the symbiote would pilot his body and go out to protect his kind. And it would have stayed with Peter forever. But as history went, Peter didn't feel the same. And the symbiote remembers Peter saying that he'd rather die than to be bonded to it. But even still, it saved his life, and after that it wore his symbol and continued to fight his war, the war against death itself, which is what then led it to saving Eddie. Because when it found Eddie in Our Lady of Saints Church, the symbiote felt like it had a responsibility to save his life. And part of its way of doing this was by going to war with Eddie against Peter, since that's what Eddie needed at the time. And the symbiote admits that this portion of its past is a bit complicated, because even though Venom has told Spider-Man that he wants to eat his brains, the symbiote says here that it never actually wanted to kill Peter, though at times it might have seemed that way. But following this, the Venom Symbiot does more of a speed run when it comes to the other hosts that it's had after Eddie, but looking back, the Venom Symbiot just believes that it's destroyed all of them, and only with the exception of Dylan, because as it stands, the symbiote's not sure if Dylan's still alive or not, because during Blood Hunt, Meridius told the Venom Symbiot that Dylan's still alive, and Eddie's coming back. though at the same time it's not sure if it can trust Meridius, or believe any of that. And because the symbiote wasn't able to save Eddie, or Anne, or any of the other hosts, it decided not to go back to Dylan in its injured state after going toe-to-toe with the captive, so instead it made its way to the home of Peter Parker, so it could hide in his closet and just die there. But the truth of the matter is, the Venom Symbiote is just afraid of trying to protect Dylan and failing. But as the hand of fate would see it, Peter reaches into his closet for his regular costume after seeing Eddie on TV, only to grab the Venom Symbiote and put it on, which was not the symbiote's intention. So right away he's like, oh Peter, don't freak out, though at the same time it's like, how can he not? But following this, for a moment we head over to Dylan, who's currently living on the streets since Eddie's been gone for so long. And like we saw in Venom issue 35, it's here where he's met by the future version of himself, who's come back to kill the future that he's from. So from here, grown-up Dylan just explains off the bat that this doesn't play out well. So for that reason, he's used Doom Tech to travel to the past. So if he changes it here, it stays changed. But in order to make this work, he's gonna need present-day Dylan's help. But all he really says here as far as any plan is concerned is that there's 3 points in the past that he needs to push on. And if he does that right and Dylan does his part, then later they'll get one golden opportunity. Because as far as this whole Dylan versus Eddie thing goes, like I said before, neither one of them want the other one to have the Venom Symbiote, because Eddie believes if Dylan bonds with it again, the future he saw of the whole world covered in the Venom Symbiote, it's gonna become a reality. While on the other hand with Dylan, when he died and met the eventuality, at the time he was allowed to ask 5 questions. So for Dylan, after finding out the horrible past of the Venom Symbiote, he asked the eventuality what would happen if the symbiote got back with Eddie. And that answer was the two of them becoming the anti-all, with Eddie swearing that the 9th cosmos would be the last cosmos, and the last light standing in the void. So on both ends, with both Eddie or Dylan, they see one another as either the end of the world or the end of the universe, which at its core is what this whole war is about. But among the questions that Dylan asked, he only asked the eventuality, what his dad will become, how to stop him, and where he was, but he never asked how to get him back. And really, that's the part he doesn't have to worry about now, since Eddie's returned. And Dylan's getting ready to get that news from Bren now. But as Bren comes to tell him, future Dylan's like, oh, I gotta go. But it's done in the way where Bren, or Toxin at the moment, he doesn't see or hear future Dylan. So it looks like present day Dylan is just over here talking to himself. But going forward, it's here where Dylan finds out that Eddie's back. And it's funny because Eddie and Bedlam, Tiro, they're just wrecking everybody who's made their way to the garden to try to shut them down. And it's a bit ridiculous, though at the same time this is Eddie trying to get the message out. And as we're told, the Avengers are busy at the moment, so they haven't made their way there yet. So in the meantime, it's just been mercenaries and heroes for hire, and really just whoever can get there to try to shut it down. So Bran ends up telling the others if this psycho wants Dylan, then they've got to make sure that Dylan stays here. Because without the Venom Symbiote, Dylan, he's just another kid. So there's not really much he could do if things went left. And from the looks of things, it may come to the point where they might need to do more than just fight Eddie to avoid the future that Dylan saw. So before they do anything, Bren wants to know that Dylan's ready to do what needs to be done. And following this, for a moment here we go over to Alchemax, where we find Liz Allen having an emergency meeting about this Eddie Brock situation. And as it turns out, the mercs who were sent in, they were not only sent by Alchemax, without Liz knowing, but they were also pretty much the only thing they had to send out. And I mean, aside from Jack Carson, who was working for Carlton Drake, but Jack Carson is no longer with us, so he's not really an option at the moment. And with things seeming to be out of control here, Carlton Drake brings in one of the Life Foundation's top consultants, who goes by the name of Mr. Meridius. And really, there's no short way to explain him showing up here. But if you've been checking out our coverage on Venom, as well as the recent Carnage series, you may remember when we talked about Alchemax having a secret K program, which included a number of projects like synthetic hives, mind control, and possible human inoculation, to potentially create things like a symbiote vaccine, or even weapons designed to kill symbiotes. Which again, all of this was going on behind Liz's back. She just happened to stumble across the K program recently. But prior to this, one of their most dangerous developments was chemical K-43, which at one point leaked into the water system, killed a bunch of people, and made others sick, which you would think would stop a project like this, but not for Meridius, because he's taking it to the next level with chemical K-44, which improves on the original chemical and includes a secret ingredient that he says will guarantee them the win in this Venom War. And just after this, we go back to Peter and the Venom Symbiot, where now after the symbiotes told Peter his side of what's going on, Peter lets him know that Dylan would be a lot safer if he was wearing the Venom Symbiot. Though keep in mind, Peter doesn't really know about the whole Venom world threat, and the Venom Symbiot, he don't know what to believe right now. But this ends up going into Peter giving the Venom Symbiot this speech on responsibility. And it's really touching because he tells the symbiote he's got a choice. You can choose to do good things, you can choose to do bad things, or you can choose to do nothing. But regardless of whatever you choose to do or not to do, you're still making a choice. And choosing how to live is the only power any of us have. And that power comes with responsibility. And it's really touching how Peter just convinces the symbiote, like, hey, you gotta choose to do something, because there's nothing we can do about the past. And the look on the symbiote's face is just like, man, he felt that message. So next, when we go back to Grand Garden Arena, we see that Eddie notices a particular symbiote creeping around in camouflage, who of course, as it turns out, is Sleeper, who's now made his way here with Dylan and the others. So at first, Eddie's like, I'm back, I'm happy to see you, son, but now I'm gonna need my symbiote. I need Venom. So of course, Dylan tells him that he can't give him that. So right away, Eddie starts thinking about what'll happen if Dylan doesn't give him the symbiote. And when Dylan tells him that Venom's gone, Eddie snaps. But Dylan shuts this down really quick, because for one, he's left Dylan on his own for months, and the last time Dylan saw his dad, it was as Bedlam, when Bedlam was trying to kill Dylan. And to take it a step further, Dylan lets Eddie know that he knows all about Venom's past. And as soon as Dylan drops that bomb, Eddie asks, where is he? To where next a voice comes from up above saying, here, don't worry guys, Venom's in good hands now, as Peter swings through, back in black, bonded to the Venom Symbiot. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.